Hey, what's up? It's Jake, and I'm going to go over the production grade infrastructure checklist. So, try this one. Go into your company and ask, what are the requirements for going to production? And you'll probably have however many people you ask, you're going to get that many different answers. So, Terraform Up and Running 2 has a cool little production grade infrastructure checklist, which is not extensive, right, or all inclusive, but it does, I think the task list is good. So I wanted to share that with you. So first, you start with installation, right? You got to install everything. You can use Bash, Chef, Ansible, Puppet. You have to configure it. So all the software, port settings, TLS search, service discovery, etc. Same kind of tools, provisioning, Terraform, CloudFormation, set everything up and actually build all the infrastructure. And then the actual deployment of the service on top of the infrastructure, rolling out updates, zero downtime, blue green, rolling canary deployments. That's when you can start getting into containers, Kubernetes, ECS, EKS, stuff like that. High availability, nothing goes down, right? And you're going to have a certain risk aversion to that. So, do you want to maintain high availability for regional outages and have multi region, multi cloud, even? Auto scaling, load balancing, all that stuff. Scalability, scaling up and down, in and out, in response to load. So you got to consider not just instances and containers, but then like sharding. So if you have data that you need to shard, or caching, or divide and conquer, all that stuff. Then you got your performance, so optimizing CPU, memory, disk, network, GPU, tuning, benchmarking, load testing, things that we often skipped. And there's tons of tools for this. You can read Dynatrace, JMeter, etc. Networking, configuring all your static dynamic IPs, your ports, your firewall DNS, who's going to access what with SSH, how's your VPN going to be set up, how's everyone going to connect, what about all these people working remote, what about people in the office, all that stuff. And you got to, which DNS registrar are you going to use, all that stuff. You got networking, or the network, the security. So how are you going to do encryption in transit, encryption at rest, authentication, authorization, secrets management, and then there's all the server hardening. And if you're lucky, you won't have to deal with compliance and audit for, if you're doing HIPAA or you do FedRAMP or you have to do, SOX compliance or whatever it is, and have all that documentation as well. Um, so, Cognito, KMS Vault, all the CIS level, whatever level you're trying to use. Metrics, that's a whole nother industry. Availability, business, app, server, whatever. Observability, tracing, alerting, mean time to detect, mean time to recover, like all that stuff. CloudWatch, Datadog, New Relic, Honeycomb, Prometheus, Zabbix, you name it. Grafana, because of visualization. Visualization's not even on here for the metrics. That's another thing. Logs, centralized logging, rotating logs. How are you planning to do that? Backup and restore. So that's not just your databases, but your caches, anything else that you need backed up. S3 could be pretty much anything. Your security, your code, all that stuff. Do you want to do that across availability zones? Do you want to do it across regions? All that other stuff. So replication, Elasticache, RDS, all that stuff. And then after you've built your perfect world, then you have to come back and go through cost optimization because it's probably too expensive, and make sure you're using the right instance types and that you're taking advantage of cost savings of like using spot and reserved instances and auto scaling and getting rid of stuff you don't use and you don't need. And then there's the documentation part, and that takes forever. And you're documenting your code and commenting your code, and you're making readmes and wikis, and you got all this stuff in Slack, and you need playbooks to respond to tickets. So people have a run book for certain things, or maintenance run books, or upgrade run books, or deployment run books, or whatever you're going to do. And that's not to also, you're going to need, your architecture diagram, but also like what's your branching strategy and how does that look like? And does your organizational structure match your strategy and like all this other stuff? So that's a whole nother thing. Including job descriptions to hire people to do the job and accurately find people that do things that you actually do at your job, which is also an issue. And then there's testing, writing automated tests for your infrastructure as code, running tests after every commit, doing it nightly, having all this stuff integrated with your pipeline and having the approvals and what's your pipeline going to look like, and are you going to use a change of approval board, and is that all based on which tests, and then you got to get a QA department, and then they got to get test people to write tests, and it's just a lot of work. So if anybody ever tells you that this is not going to take a long time, just consider every single time you build something. Like tomorrow, if you go to work and somebody asks you to build something like a simple auto scaling group, how do you, um, could you go through this entire thing and say that you've accounted for all of these things and what you're going to do? Maybe, maybe not. Usually not, right? You're not going to be talking about tests or hopefully you're doing some documentation, but are you monitoring it? How, like, oh yeah, it's in CloudWatch. Like, well, okay, well, what are you monitoring? And if there's an issue, are you doing alerting? And who are you alerting? Is there just a webhook in the Slack, and like the on-call person at 2 a.m. is just supposed to be watching Slack? Like, how do you have pager duty, or what are you using? So there's a lot of questions to ask when you're trying to get something ready for production. And this is just a short list, but it's a good list to have to at least start to formulate a plan. And you can add stuff in here, like I was saying. There's nothing in here on visualization tools, or like are you going to give business metrics? Are you going to give a business user access to CloudWatch? Probably not. Would you make them a dashboard in New Relic or Datadog? Maybe you totally do that. So just, whatever. And there's like a bajillion tools for every single one of these tasks. Uh, so it's up to you. Sorry, Windows people, I didn't put PowerShell in here, but yeah, there's tons of tools. So anyways, so this is just a getting started type of infrastructure checklist you can use to go, are we ready for prod? Or when somebody's trying to scope something and be like, how long is this going to take? Ask these questions and ask the teams that are responsible for each of these tasks, hey, how long would it take you if I was going to provision this, and give them a diagram or whatever you're tasked with doing, and see if they have an idea, like, hey, network team, how long would it take to do, any of the IPs, port, service discovery, firewall, DNS, SSH, and VPN for this project? And they can give you an idea. Security team, or if you're like me, sometimes you're all of these people, because we don't have a security team. But yeah, so definitely try to get a benchmark for how long something's going to take. Especially with this performance. I see too many query tuning, benchmarking, load testing things get skipped, and they end up making things take forever and really mess up your go live. So anyways, good luck for you that are doing go lives or going to production, and hopefully maybe you can use this checklist. So I'll put it in my Terraform Git repo. I'll put a link to it in the video description if you are interested in copying and pasting it, but I'll warn you, I just made a markdown table, so it's not pretty. See you later.